Lydia is the queen of the underground, and yet she's a misfit within it, because I think that she is so brutally honest that some people can't maybe handle what she does.
I think Lydia's reactionary, but really artfully reactionary.
Get your gun, woman. Get your fucking gun, all right? Because there's a rumor going around we never believe in, and that the fucking war has just begun, baby. That the war is never over. That the war is never...
Lydia always talks about how the war is never over. She's been saying this for 30 years.
I'm Lydia Lunch, and if you think you know me now, I think you need to know a little bit more about me. Stubborn resistance, independence, survival. My themes have always been universal themes about the imbalance of power, about injustice, about trauma, and how do you survive and thrive beyond that.
Lydia is a fucking doctor. Her kind of medicine is just a punch in the fucking face.
Looks different. So
right.
Let's see if this
is a
little...
It's very true. It depends on the time of day, right? Where the light is, etc.
This is less glare.
You look good. It looks good.
Except right here.
Now, are those t-shirts there? What's that? Or is that...
Those are tote bags.
Tote bags, even. Okay, very good. One size fits all in that case. You don't have to worry about it.
Exactly. So what do you want to, talk about? What is your focus?
Well, I'm kind of curious. We did talk last year, and I should have listened to what we did last. Do you remember we did a thing last year?
Yeah.
I guess it would have been in February, right? It would have been just preceding what was the original plan for the release.
Exactly. Maybe you can mix them up, Oh, I bet they'd be very different.
Yeah, I could do that. I can also the audio version of this. What I take out, I'll extract the audio, and then maybe I'll put that. I have to listen to it and see if there, or just maybe even part of what we did. But it's interesting. It led me to think about releasing this film.
Oh, are we
during? We could, yeah, we're kind of just starting. Talking about Lydia Lunch with Beth B and. Yeah, I apologize. That's sort of my inept way of starting most shows. People always ask, have we started? I'm like, I'm sorry, yes. But it generally comes out okay. So, but I'm just like releasing this documentary this year as opposed to last year before the election, it's interesting timing. It's like, it's not out of a choice, but let's talk about, like, you were on the cusp of releasing it, and there was a different president at the time. What is it like? What has the last year been like? What were you going through right before you just sort of decided to switch gears? You were getting ready for, was it a premiere, or were you just going into a festival? I can't remember.
We were just about to leave for South by Southwest.
That's what, right? Okay.
1 week out, bought all the tickets, the hotel rooms.
Oh my God.
My daughter and my partner were coming with, and a couple of other friends. It was like so exciting. And then the pandemic hit.
Right.
So there was a lot of shock, disappointment, confusion. It's so hard with independent filmmaking to get on anyone's radar.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's why I do the show.
Yeah. And so, we had, gotten into South by Southwest. We had gotten
Which is a great thing.
Really important festivals like the Sheffield Doc Fest, the, Doc Lisboa, a whole lineup of screenings all over the world. And then suddenly it's all gone. So it was definitely, I had to kind of scrape myself up off the floor, which, I often have to do.
I know, but you hope that over time you don't have to do it. Like something should just come a little easier. But
Yeah,
this
I
is
feel, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no. You say.
No, I feel like I have chosen a path in my life where nothing's easy. And the challenge is always there with every film. And I guess that says something about me, my resiliency, and also that I don't like to do things that are easy.
Mhm.
So, it's almost like the battle of Lydia Lunch is my battle as well. I feel like there is from a young age, being told, don't do this, don't do that, and I rebelled from a young age. And that has stayed with me. And I love to voice the unheard and speak out as loudly and sometimes as brutally as I need to get people's attention. And sometimes people go, oh, why are your films so provocative? And it's not that they're so provocative, they're telling truths.
Right. Maybe the better question is, why are so many other films not?
Because they're trying to fit into,
Right.
in a way, the mainstream and what sells and what's appealing, and let's have a feel-good ride. My life and what I'm interested in is not necessarily a feel-good ride, but I feel that there is an intensity to it, an integrity and honesty that then hopefully hits the audience and they walk away with questions about themselves personally.
Sure.
It's an intimate exchange and experience. And so in some ways, the Lydia Lunch film was very, that's really attracted me to making the film with Lydia, because I've known her for 40 years.
You were very young when you guys met, right? In the 70s. She was barely she was still a teenager.
She was 19 when I met her. Yeah, I was 23. So, but the pandemic in some ways helped me to come to a place in myself, which I'm not sure I had been to previously, which was considering life, just life, being. And I actually loved it. I loved being in the woods with the birds and the sky and all the insects and a lake a couple blocks away, and being here with my teenage daughter and my partner. And it was like a little cocoon. And in some ways, I felt like it brought me closer to myself. I worked on, I mentored my daughter to write a feature-length screenplay to tell her story, which is really an extraordinary script. Lydia and I had a lot of, phone exchanges and just, moaning and groaning, but also, okay, let's continue to work. Lydia ended up doing a documentary film about depression. And, there are different ways of being what we call productive. And for me, that time was very much about the magic door has opened.
Elijah's arrived.
It's about opening doors that perhaps were not open within oneself in the past. And I felt like that during the pandemic. It was like a kind of peace and solace of not having to be a human doing, but just being a human being within myself. And now it's given me a different kind of energy and thoughts about future that I'm looking forward to. And the most exciting thing is that we finally have opened up, and the film is opening at the IFC Center on June 30th. And it's opening around the country nationally and internationally. And Lydia is going to be playing live at TVI on July 2nd.
Oh, very during
with
the
her band Retrovirus.
Say that again.
With her band Retrovirus. So,
Retrovirus. Where is IT? What is the name of the place?
TVI. It's out in Brooklyn.
It's in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And I'll try to remember to plug that as well, because that's during her week of it's during her theatrical week. She got a theatrical.
Exactly.
Fantastic news.
We have a theatrical release of the film. And we hope people come out to the theater. And with Lydia and I will actually be there in person doing a Q&A.
Yes, so you can actually engage with Beth B and Lydia Lunch, and you will want to after you see the documentary, because it is, I mean, yeah, you'll just feel closer to Lydia. I mean, you'll want to engage with her and connect with her. I was wondering, and I was going to start off by asking this, but I guess I was under the impression, I guess if you were at South by in this hypothetical version of a non-pandemic experience, which I'm only bringing up because maybe you would have had an earlier theatrical, perhaps, maybe somebody, Kino might have seen it there or some other. And I just wonder if you feel like, let's say it come out before November, I like, then there was like all the rage was, we needed all the rage we could get back then. I mean, I think we obviously still do. But I wonder if you felt like the timing of the theatrical, would there have been any difference before, like last year as opposed to this year with this particular subject? I don't know.
I don't really think so. In a way, for me, the film about Lydia, it's called Lydia Lunch, The War Is Never Over.
Well, there you go.
There you go. It's very open-ended. You know,
Right.
We're in battle all the time. And it really was not to be a biopic. That is not my intent whatsoever. I really felt like it was important to look back at some history. And that's where a lot of my filmmaking and art installations, photography, it comes out of a sense of looking back at history. What can we learn? What can we glean from that place in the past to bring us up to where we are in the present, to inform us in the present and take that into the future? And so in many ways, I wanted it to inform us in that way, but also to give younger people a bit of that journey that we older people have taken, because I think that a lot of young, and especially young women, they really don't have that information. And so it's critical, because you look at what Lydia was screaming about 40 years ago, okay? You look at someone like Ida Mae Park, who made the film Bread in, I think, 1918. It was the same issues. It's like Harvey Weinstein in 1918. She made that film, which was about the abuses suffered by women in Hollywood. And so it's really important to remind young people especially that there has been this struggle, and we have to continue to speak out, because even though Ida Mae Parks was speaking out in 1918, it's like we move a little forward, then we take 20 steps backwards. We move a little forward, so there's a sense of amnesia in our culture. And in some ways, this film is critically speaking about that amnesia and saying, do not forget, and that we all have to be activists in a way in our lives.
Yeah. I know I was just, this is also the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa massacre. So there's been a lot of news about that. And you think about the parallels there during this Jim Crow period.
Yeah.
And how it was like one person I was talking to on the show, she's a Washington Post journalist, and she was talking about how just even for a Black person to walk down the street was an act of like a political act. And how far we come, because I think you're right. If we're all activists, then we don't get lazy. We don't just sort of live a life of allowing things to change, but we actually participate in the change all the time.
Yeah, and not to take things for granted.
Not to take things for granted. You can't if you're participating, right?
Really, what I think is important, and Lydia is so articulate and yet also humorous and yet abrasive, and that's something that I really wanted, and compassionate, and all the different dimensions were important for me to bring out in the film, because I think that there is a sense of persona in someone who does have a larger than life persona like Lydia.
Right.
And sometimes that's all people see when they see her on stage. And for me, it was critically important to show the dimensions of her personality, her character, the depth of her sensitivity, because I think that that brings us closer to her. And that in all my films, that is really my goal, is to humanize someone who perhaps we've put up on a pedestal.
Right, or that we only have, like you say, the sort of the surface impression of that, the most you know, what's the word, not obvious, but something along those lines, you know, like with somebody who does such an act of that's so large, you're going to see that, as you said, and maybe you're not thinking about all the what created that, where does that come from, all these things, and the film goes down that road.
Yes, and exactly, you know, many people have said to me, you know, that the film has helped them.
Has it? Oh, that's nice.
To be more informed about why she does what she does.
Mhm.
And I think once you feel that kind of compassion for another person, and it helps you to identify, and that what they're talking about is my films and what Lydia has done in her performances and music, it's always been a universal message. Sometimes the approach is to smack people upside of the head to get their attention, wake them up.
Mhm.
But that's important. That's important. You know, there's a fantastic, pretty extreme performance artist named Rose Wood, and she was in my film Exposed. And there is one performance she did where she embodied a serial killer. And in the performance, she drags a woman in the audience up onto the stage, chloroforms her, drags her to the stage, and then really kind of eviscerates her. And at the end is with the chainsaw. And people said to me, why did you have that in there? You know, it was too brutal, too excruciating.
Mhm.
This is what has happened, you know, to women forever.
Right.
We are eviscerated. We are, you know, genital mutilation, you know, God knows what, the brutality. And so it's bringing a reality.
Bill Cosby.
Exactly.
Bill Cosby.
The abuses. But
for 50 years, they knew what he was, people were talking about what he was doing. So there's a complicit sort of side to it.
Well, and
when you don't want to see it. And you're saying you can't be complicit. Yeah.
It's really important. And, you know, a friend of mine said, oh, you should have cut that. And I was like, no, that is this performer's integrity, and it's their journey. And it's not my job to censor someone's journey. It's my job to hopefully help people understand the journey.
Right. But it could compromise for you as trying to to have a career and to, you know, profit from your films. I mean, that is an awfully, people might say that that's not the most you know, practical choice, right, to include something like that.
But I'm not practical. I do what I have to do. It's not a choice. Like in the late 70s, it was not like, oh, I had a choice to, you know, paint pretty pictures of flowers. No, it was that I had to scream. I had to, you know, the films that I made were really aggressive, violent, abrasive, because that's what I needed to exorcise out of my own body and mind. I'm not there to please other people. I've gotten maybe a little less, you know, in your face, and I try to like seduce people into my films a little bit more these days. Then I smack them over the head. Right. But you know, I've never been a filmmaker that's making commercial films. It's or profit. It's that I have usually something very deep, dark inside myself, and I'm not even sure sometimes why I'm embarking on a film, except that it's something burning inside me that I have a passion about, that I become obsessed with, and I've got to make this film. So it's, you know, and that's been my approach. It's not, you know, I worked in television for 8 years. So I was like, oh my God, I've got to make a living. I've got to get paid for what I'm doing. And I learned a tremendous amount about sort of collaboration and working on a very different level. Actually, oh my God, having a cinematographer and a, an editor, all, and paying them well and all of that. I brought my own projects to the networks and had a fantastic ride. But at a certain point, what happened is that the networks really started to expand, and
Yeah.
suddenly I was having to speak to 3 executives, and it was like, take this out, take this out, take this out.
Yeah,
And of course,
everything by committee, sure.
yes, the committee, the corporate
Yeah.
structure that I really was not enamored of. And after about 8 years, I was like, okay, done. It helped me to be able to get this wonderful place in the country. I love it. But, I could not do it anymore. And that's what really brought me back to independent, completely uncensored cinema. And that's Exposed was that film, which it was like, people in the performance scene back into the underground of New York with really extreme performers who were using the vehicle of burlesque
Right.
to speak about some very cutting edge social political topics. So, my films now, I'm back in the completely independent underground, but this one has made it above ground. And I'm so pleased you asked that question about, in retrospect, whether the Lydia Lunch, The War Is Never Over, if it had been released a year and a half ago versus now, the advantage I really have is that Kino Lorber, our distributor, came in and they said they started to acquire my other films and acquired Lydia Lunch, The War Is Never Over. So they actually have acquired my entire catalog of films and are restoring them all.
Wow. How many films are you? Yeah, that's wonderful news. We're news breaking here. Maybe it's already out, but
it is. It's news breaking. It's like, can you believe it? And releasing some of them theatrically and doing DVDs. And so all those films, the old films, the Super 8s, the 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter,
Wow.
Small Body, Salvation, Black Box, all of those films will be restored and available finally.
So you handed over those various media types, right? You had it like
Super 8,
Super 8, all the different media formats that you
Yes.
filmed on or shot over the years.
Yeah.
I imagine there's quite a few different types there.
You can't believe. And MoMA also, Museum of Modern Art, they restored one of the films, the old film, The Offenders. And so that's been restored. So slowly, and by 2022, we will be releasing them through Kino Lorber.
Awesome.
And
Well, that's great. We'll do another. We'll have to do another segment when that happens, so we can let people know how to. That'd be wonderful. Well, you guys met in the 70s. I guess now what they refer to as the no wave scene in New York, right? So that's when you met Lydia?
That is when I met Lydia. We were doing a film called Black Box. And, that actually is the time I went to a club. I can't remember where it was. Max's. It was probably Max's. And saw her on Max's Kansas City in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Saw her on stage and was like completely like, who is
Yeah.
She was like black hair, short cut, very severely, I think wearing a slip top and a, super beyond micro mini leather skirt and screaming like an extraordinary banshee. And the set was, I think the entire set was 15 minutes long. It was just like getting the point across, boom, 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 get the point across, leave the stage.
Right.
And that, it's so much, I related to it so much on a visceral level, just getting that, like people say, oh my God, Beth, Lydia Lunch, The War Is Never Over. The movie it's only 78 minutes. How did you condense Lydia's? And for me, it's not like I'm trying to tell her entire life. It's thematically based. And Lydia and I mean, it's been fascinating because we've worked on and off for all these years. And I think what has really majorly attracted us to each other is that our themes have really kind of connected through the years, and that's when we find ourselves like, oh, okay, let's work on this together, and we find another project to work on. And so when I saw her and felt like, oh, this is the image and embodiment of a woman I have never seen. She was so original, and she still is so original and unique. There is no other Lydia Lunch. I was enamored of her and frightened of her, and cast her in the
I
film
bet you like that.
Black Box.
Like, yeah. Okay. So Black Box was a theatrical?
No, it was
Or
not theatrical. It was a short film. I think
Okay.
we lost our connection there.
We may have, I think for a second, yeah, it froze. It's okay. The audio wasn't interrupted. So however, it's okay it doesn't have to be perfect. The message gets across.
We are not perfect, God knows.
Exactly. No. But well, it's a fascinating, she's so fascinating. And it's very, as I'm in my 50s and well into my 50s, it's good to see people that are still have something to say, who still have, or discovering their artistic nature and their sides of journey,
It's never too late, honey.
I could, well said. And are you are you still like in rural New Jersey? Is that my, or?
No, right
Okay.
now I am in the Poconos.
I thought maybe you were from Pennsylvania originally.
Yeah, no, I'm from New York originally, and then
okay.
Chicago, and then
Okay.
California, and then New York. And it's interesting. I say it's never too late to be creative. I feel like what's been one of the most exciting things in the few screenings we were able to do before the pandemic was to see how inspired some of the young women were.
Sure.
Upon seeing, I mean, there were some who came to me afterwards who were crying, who were so touched by the film because they felt like finally someone was telling their story without apology.
Yeah.
And also some of them have made films, short films, that I'll be showing actually in some festivals in Europe.
Oh. So some of these, are you saying that some of the women that approached you, or some of the filmmakers over the last year or so that you've met, have short films that are thematically along similar lines, and then you're going to include them in?
They started to make them as students. So they're students.
Oh, okay.
And one of them was my intern, Emma Swider, and she, was inspired by the film. She actually worked on the film. She was my assistant editor. And through the course of seeing my work and Lydia's work, she became so inflamed and made an extraordinary film called Marin Company. And, to me, that's so satisfying, to be able to inspire other people to be creative. And that's why I say it's never too late. You could be 70 years old. My hope is that you're inspired by something in your life that inside you are burning to release.
Well, it's a matter of having an open, being open and just being open to it. I mean, that's the whole thing,
Yeah.
You're lucky enough.
And also sometimes to be open to feeling your own discomfort. And I think that for me, when I am open to feeling discomfort, it often informs what I need to think about in regards to my own personal growth and, insights into myself, because that's usually why one feels uncomfortable. Is there something that is being tapped into or being triggered that you really don't want to look at? And, if you can look at it and sit with the discomfort, that can be revelatory.
All right.
Oh, do you have little dogs?
Sorry about that.
That's okay. My cat usually walks through here, but I left her in my daughter's room. So I've lost. Oh, are you back?
Yeah. Okay. I left. I've been up in the Hudson Valley. I left New York City. Also, you were talking at the beginning about this last year and all the gifts you sort of have gotten out of it. And I feel the same. You spoke exactly as the words were out of my mouth in the sense that, or out of your mouth, but you spoke for me because I had the same type of experience where I just, it's been such a great last year just living in New York City. I needed the break.
Yeah. I mean, I need the break now forever. I'm actually moving to Savannah.
That's another big news breaking announcement here. Savannah, why Savannah, Georgia?
Well, my daughter Lola, she's been accepted to Savannah College of Art and Design, and she was very excited about it. She's extremely talented in multiple ways, super smart. And she said, well, I'm so excited about going, but the only thing is I wish you guys would come with me. So we have a very small, tight, loving family, just the three of us. And my partner is Jim Coleman, who's a musician with the was with Cop Shoot Cop and is now with Human Impact, new band with Chris Spencer of Unsane, and they'll be playing out big time. And so we just said, yeah, let's go. We love being with her. That's
amazing. So but you're keeping the place in the Poconos?
Yes, we are.
That'll be your
summers. It's gorgeous here in the summers.
I think it's supposed to be gorgeous in Savannah, but it's probably quite
too hot in the summer.
Yeah, it gets hot and probably muggy there.
Yeah,
but it is a beautiful. From what I it's one of the few places that I've always wanted to go to. I haven't been there. Just it's like not on the way to anything. So you have to be going to Savannah, and I just haven't I haven't been invited yet.
Yeah,
but it sounds spectacular. Just
it is. Yeah, from
what I hear.
I've only been there once when we went to see the school, and I just fell in love with it. And I don't know, we'll see.
Sure.
The good thing is we'll be back here, and it's where we are here in the Poconos, very close to the city still. And I really need kind of the nature. I really need nature.
I agree. Yeah.
Late 70s, early 80s, it was like New York City was my home, the home I never had. It had the intensity and gloriously filthy, demolished streets. I loved it. Creative energy was just vibrant. And, it's not there for me at all anymore. Just the corporatization and the millionaires and the co-ops. It is just like shopping malls. I'm like, I cannot be there anymore. So
I agree. People say you left New York. I said, no, New York left me.
Yes.
It sounds like a cliche. Sounds like a cliche, but I had this. Again, you're speaking for me too, because I had the same feelings about when I moved. My younger time in New York, but that's also part of it. They always say New York is for the young, but I hope
now it's for people with a lot of money and friends.
Yes, it's Wall Street.
Exactly. Not where I want to be.
But I happen to be in the city today because I'm heading to New Jersey tomorrow for Father's Day, and then I'm going to LA for a week to see my kid. And
where are you living now?
What's that?
You're in Hudson Valley?
Yeah, and it's just so beautiful, and it's just every day I was just so happy just when I go, when I go for a bike ride or a walk, and I'm just like, it's just so beautiful, and I just never get tired of it. Or living, I have to pinch myself to realize that I'm living in kind of like a version of paradise to me.
I totally agree. This morning, I said it to Jim this morning. We both did yoga in our backyard. I'm like, this is a new experience. I never did that before. I was like, I'm looking at the trees and the sky and the birds flying by, a hawk, all this. I'm like, wow, at my age, I can have these extraordinary feelings that I've never had before, these sensations that went through my body. And yesterday we went on this long walk in the woods, and then we came to this like idyllic place with water and just jumped in this this stream that was deep and cold and fresh and
Right. Well,
that,
it's the most natural thing of all. That's what you're supposed to do. It's just an animal in nature.
and I hated nature though. All those years I was in New York, I was like, I do not want to go to the country. No, never.
Well, Well, the powers, of that had a different plan for you at the time. Yeah,
Well,
you needed to put,
Well, the city fed me creatively.
Sure.
The city does not feed me creatively
And you
anymore.
gave back.
And nature, it doesn't give back. And nature is giving forever.
Right.
Until we completely destroy it.
And that is another podcast.
Okay.
of itself.
Adam, thank you so much.
Sure.
This was really great.
I love talking to you. And I'm going to invite you again when when Kino Lorber releases your back catalog. It sounds which will be remastered and restored and remastered.
They look gorgeous. They look so incredible.
I bet they do.
And then we can talk about those films because it's such a fascinating history.
I can't wait. No, and I want to see everything too. I can't wait. And we'll just remind people that Lydia Lunch, the war is never. What is it? Lydia Lunch now.
The war is never.
War is never over.
It is never over. Remember that, folks.
It's I should remember that. The Lydia Lunch, the war is never over, opens June 30th.
June 30th
at the IFC Center in New York City, and then I assume elsewhere.
Yes, it has like something like 15 cities, and we're going to expand to probably 20 cities around the country. Theatrically, some will be physical, some will be virtual. So check your local theaters and museums. And Lydia and I will be there on June 30th. Lydia is going to be playing live on July 2nd at TVI. So come see us
in Brooklyn.
Yes, in Brooklyn. So come see us at the IFC Center in New York City and say hello. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you too.
Okay, take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.